Georgia and this is The Sound of Georgia. And today is another video in the Today in Julie Andrews History series. It really is a testament to how much I love this series as a thing on my channel, because I really hate this one. Today we're talking about S.O.B. And no, it doesn't stand for what you're thinking. So if you haven't seen this movie, you probably know it as the one where Julie shows her... yeah. It was released on the 9th of July 1981. And it was another film that was directed by her husband Blake Edwards. And the second of what I like to call the bad Blake movies. If I'm feeling really nice, I call them Blake's biopics. Because these four films are so similar, it's ridiculous. Unless he was adapting a pre-existing work or making a movie about pink cats, I have the feeling that Blake Edwards only had one story in him. They basically follow a checklist. But in this one, we're following Felix Farmer, who's a Hollywood movie producer. And his latest movie has just bombed. So this sends him into a complete depression, and he attempts suicide a few times. But one such attempt fails because it ends up with him getting laid. And that's when he has an epiphany. He's going to reshoot the movie, but make it a porno. Julie plays Felix's wife, Sally Miles, who is a Hollywood actress with a very squeaky clean image. Does this sound familiar? Is it art imitating life? Is it life imitating art? Or is it art imitating life because of life that imitated art? Because this film was actually very heavily inspired by Darling Lili. Or at least the nightmare that was behind the scenes of Darling Lili. Because a huge reason they made Darling Lili was to broaden Julie Andrews' image and make it not so squeaky clean. And it failed. Not only to do that, but just as a movie in general. I absolutely love it, but it was certainly not the success that they were hoping for. And it actually wasn't too long after Darling Lili that Blake started to think of the story that would be S.O.B. Darling Lili came out in 1970 and S.O.B. wasn't released until 1981, but he had the idea for it much, much earlier. And unlike the protagonist's attempt at a film, and I guess what happens to him in the end, S.O.B. did pretty well, in a way. It had a budget of $12 million and it raked in $15 million at the box office. It was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Film, Musical or Comedy, and Robert Preston won an NSFC. That is really hard to say, actually. An NSFC award for Best Supporting Actor. However, it also got Razzie nominations, and Razzie is like the opposite of the Oscars. It's the awards for the worst. So Blake received 2 Razzie nominations for Worst Director and Worst Screenplay. So it was a bit of a mixed bag. So while, as I said, it was successful and it's got an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes and plenty of people really love it, it was pretty divided when it came to the critics. And honestly, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. This is right up there with Hawaii on the Julie movies I don't like list. Even Hawaii, I can acknowledge, is very well made and very well acted and objectively a good film. But this, I don't get it. I don't really like anything about S.O.B. I said this in my video last year about the stage version of Victor Victoria. I don't want to say Blake Edwards is bad. I absolutely love Darling Lili and Victor Victoria, the movie. The stage version's not horrible, but it doesn't need to exist. But I love the movie. So I'm not going to say Blake Edwards is bad, but I definitely don't think he's an underappreciated genius whose works are all incredible and people just don't know it. I don't like this one. And as I said, he made 3 other movies that are very, very, very similar, and honestly, I'm not a huge fan of any of them, hence the reason I call them the bad Blake movies. I know this movie is a send-up and satire of Hollywood, particularly inspired the nightmarish production of Darling Lili, but I don't get it. I've only watched it twice. Believe it or not, a lot of the time I don't actually watch the movies I make videos on for this series, which I know is weird. But most of the time that's okay, because I've seen them so many times that I can form an opinion without having to watch them. This one is not the case. I haven't watched it in probably 5 years, but I didn't want to sit down for 2 hours and watch a movie I know I don't like. I think the fact that I didn't want to do that says enough. And the songs. I'm just going to talk about them briefly. Oh god, the songs. The opening song is Polly Wolly Doodle, and even just thinking about it gets it in my head. I've only seen the movie twice, I haven't watched it in years, and I can still hear that song so clearly just by thinking about it. It's infuriating. I hate it. And then there's the song at the end. I don't think I have ever heard a more forgettable song. I couldn't tell you what the lyrics are, I couldn't tell you what the tune is, I can't even tell you what it's called. It's that forgettable. It's not strictly bad. In fact, I think it's kind of sweet. But that is the only thing I remember about that final song in S.O.B. that I think it's kind of sweet. And if you're wondering why that hitchhiking girl has such a big role when she doesn't need to, it's because she's played by Blake's daughter. I was so confused watching it, I'm like, why is she here? And then it got to the end credits and it said Jennifer Edwards and I'm like, it all makes sense. So would I recommend it? I don't know. Make your own choice. It did well in a lot of places and not so well in others. A lot of people really like it and a lot of people don't. That's everything I've got for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know. What are your thoughts on this movie? Are you like me and just really don't like it? Or is there something I'm missing? Feel free to like and subscribe and I'll see you in my video next week. So long for now.